This beautiful morning is the last day of May, and the straw bale garden is progressing. It's been just about 6 weeks since the bales were started, so let me show you how we got to where we are today. A few days after starting the bales, the weather forecast was for some warm, sunny days, so I tried to get a jump on the season with some early plantings of frost-resistant crops. I should tell you that planting in late April in this part of Wisconsin is very early, especially if you're not putting them under shelters. Since we were home all day, every day, and staring at the yard, I think it pushed me to starting the bales almost a month early. Planting the potatoes and the onion sets into the composted straw is really not a problem. Those plants can handle a frost, and they will simply come up whenever they come up. I also planted some radishes and small Japanese turnips in the area where I planted the potatoes and onions, in hopes that getting a crop of those before the potatoes grew over them and shaded them out. I also sowed some lettuce, chard, fennel, and spinach seeds into the soil on top of some of the bales. When I have planted the bales like this in late May, these plants grow well, but most of them bolt by the middle of June. So I had hoped that by planting early and with the weather forecast for some warm sunny days, that I would get those seeds to germinate and grow a bit, and I would get more of a crop this year than I have in the past. Once the weather turns too hot, they bolt, and by then, however, it'll be time to plant warmer weather plants like tomatoes, peppers, and beans, zucchinis, to take their place. I also started a patch of bunching onions. These seeds are very slow to germinate, so I was hoping again these warm sunny days might get them a head start. I sow a few packets of seeds like this every year into a relatively small space, and those onions really pack it in. They don't really mind being crowded. They grow well in those conditions, and I'll get onions from them all summer long. I finished up by watering everything really well and then continued with the process of conditioning the bales. We did get 3 sunny days, but I would not say that they were particularly warm. Then Mother Nature ignored all the forecasts and sent wintry weather to us for about 20 days. We even had snow accumulation on Mother's Day. All these seeds just sat there waiting for warmer conditions. So much for getting an early start. That late spring winter storm was followed up by nice weather. My friend Chris asked me to help him set up a bale garden in his backyard. He had never done it before. After I had posted that first video about my garden, Joel Karsten contacted me to say thank you for sharing. Joel knows straw bale gardening. The first year that I started, I had listened to Joel give a talk at the Wisconsin Public Television Garden Expo. Joel also has some great books on the topic. I will leave a link to his website, strawbalegardens.com, in the description for this video. Joel was kind enough to send me some of his Bale Buster formula for starting new straw bales, but since I had already started my garden, we decided to use this on Chris's bales. Bale Buster contains organic nitrogen mixed with spores of beneficial bacteria and fungi that will accelerate the conditioning of a raw bale. The process is pretty simple and the instructions are clear. Sprinkle the right amount of Bale Buster mix on top of the bales and water it in, and then repeat for the prescribed number of applications. Chris's bales were started about a month after mine, but his report when I checked in with him just before Memorial Day weekend is that the bales were doing well and he was going to start planting the following week. We will check back with Chris before I make the next video. The first full week of nighttime temperatures above 45 degrees did not occur here until the week after Memorial Day, so I had to wait until then to start planting the bales. The seeds that I had planted so early didn't sprout until the week before Memorial Day, which is a lot later than I had hoped for. Everything came up pretty well, but I doubt that planting them as early as I did has made a big difference in when I will get a harvest or whether or not they're going to bolt. Next year I may try to build frost covers over the garden to see if that will let me start early. Every year is a little different. There really is not much to planting potted plants into a bale. The most important thing is to get the roots of the plant as deep as possible into the composted straw. I like to buy tomato plants that are at least 8 to 10 inches tall, and I strip all the leaves off the plant except for the top growth. Then I use a trowel to pull apart the bale to make an opening for the plant and push the roots in deep enough so that only the top of the plant is above the bale. Every leaf node along the stem that is inside the bale will sprout roots and help the plant to grow strong. It may seem like the plant takes a little longer to get established this way, but once those roots start growing, this tomato plant will explode. This year, there were not a whole lot of plants available at the nursery when I went to go plant shopping, so I had to get plants that are smaller than I normally like to buy. Everyone is growing a garden this year, and many people started their plants weeks too early and had to buy more plants after the cold weather killed them. I guess this is a good thing for the nursery business, but there does seem to be a bit of a shortage of plants this year. Tomato plants get big, so I typically plant only one tomato into a single bale. This year I planted 2 large slicing varieties, 1 paste tomato, and 2 cherry varieties. That provides more fruit than we could possibly eat in a season. I like to plant peppers the same way that I do tomatoes, but this year the plants I was able to find were too small to really strip off a whole lot of leaves. Cucumbers and zucchini are planted at the surface of the bale. I find that if you plant them too deep, you can have some stem rot. These plants are sprouted at the nursery 2 or 3 per pot. I look for a zucchini with 2 healthy plants, which will provide more fruit than we can use. I plant a zucchini at the end of the row of bales because it will take up a lot of space and can grow off the edge. I plant 2 varieties of cucumber, a Japanese slicing variety that will vine up a trellis, and a bush pickling. I plant them on opposite sides of the trellis so that the climber can have all the space on the trellis and not really compete for space with the bush variety. Herbs are planted into the sides of the bales. I like to plant sweet basil, flat leaf parsley, dill for pickling, thyme, lemongrass, and cilantro. Almost 1/4 of my bales are taken up with green beans. We eat a lot of green beans and I preserve even more. I plant two varieties. Each bale will get 3 pole bean seeds in the center arranged in a triangle, and I will thrust a pole through the bale in between those 3 seeds as they sprout for the vines to climb. In between the pole beans, I plant bush beans, which will grow on top of the bales and cascade over the sides. Watering new plants in a straw bale is very important. The bales are still in the process of composting, so they still need the water to do that. The plants are also transitioning from growing in soil to growing in a bale, and a moist root zone will help that stressful process. If there is no rain and if the days are sunny and windy, a bale will dry out a lot faster than you think it might, especially at the surface of the bale. So when in doubt, water, water, water. It will take about a week for the plants to make the transition to living in the bale, but once they do, they start to grow really fast. Which brings us back to today, the last day in May. The plants have been in the bales for 2 weeks and are looking really good. All of the seeds that I planted early are finally growing in. There's going to be plenty of lettuce, spinach, chard, fennel. I'm not sure how long they'll last once it starts getting hot, but I'll get something out of them. The beans are all well sprouted. Here you can see how I have 3 pole beans growing around a single pole, which will go up to that rope over the bale and grow along the rope as well. And the bush beans growing beside them will just take up the space. The onions are starting to grow in real well, and all the tomatoes and peppers are starting to increase in size. You'll notice a lot of grass growing up through the bale. That's actually wheat. It's seeds left over in the straw. This year seems to be worse than in previous years. The only thing that's really annoying is the potato and onion patch. First, it's very weedy, though most of those are tomato sprouts from last year's dropped fruit. I'll just have to keep picking them out as I find them. And the potatoes exploded before the radishes matured, and now the radishes are shaded. That cold weather really hurt their progress, and I doubt that we'll get a radish this year. Overall, I think the garden has gotten a really good start this year, and I'll be back with an update towards the end of June when we should be able to take a look at the first fruit set. Thanks for watching.